I caught my wife with my best friend in the bar. After that, I ended my relationship with them and moved to another city. I went to my favorite country bar and grill, found a spot at a small table in the back and ordered a sandwich, fries, and a beer. As I devoured my food, I looked up and saw my closest friend, Tom, walking in with Emily. It hit me hard because I believed Emily was my girlfriend. I had asked her out that night, but she told me she had plans with friends and suggested we go out the next day. Emily and I had been dating for 6 months, and I thought we were a couple. We spent almost every weekend together, and I felt like I was falling in love with her, and she said she felt the same about me. We even talked about getting engaged but decided to wait a few more months. Someone played the song Crazy on the jukebox and I listened to it. I wondered if Dan was the new guy. The problem was that Tom was well aware of my feelings for Emily. I guess our bro code did not mean much to him. I kept listening to the song as they acted like a couple. The last verse said, "Crazy for thinking my love could hold you, I am crazy for trying and crazy for crying, and I am crazy for loving you." I got up from my table and approached them. They looked at me and Tom started to speak, but I interrupted him. "Jack, shut your mouth. If I run into you again, one of us will end up spending a long time in the hospital. And as for you, Emily, I am seriously disappointed. We are clearly done. You have shown me your true self." I walked out of the bar. The next day, my phone kept ringing. It was Emily, but I did not feel like talking. Later, it rang again, and this time it was Tom, so I answered. What do you want, Tom?" "Jack, I am really sorry. You know I have always found Emily attractive, and while we were talking at work, I asked her out, and she agreed." "Do not lie to me. You knew she was my girl, and you still asked her out. How many times have you been with her?" "Jack, only once." How many damn times, Tom? If you lie to me, I will be after you." 3 times, Jack. We have been together 3 times. We have developed feelings for each other. I am sorry." What about Sarah? Does she know you cheated on her?" "She deserves much better than you, Tom. I do not ever want to see you again. And as for Emily, you two can stay together." I ended the call. Sarah was Tom's girlfriend, and all 3 of us worked at the same factory. The phone rang again, and it was Emily. I thought I might as well face the situation. What is up, Emily?" "I want to apologize. Tom asked me out several times, and I finally agreed to go out with him once. It did not mean anything." Stop the nonsense. I talked to Tom, and he said you have been together at least 3 times. I bet it is even more than that." "It was for the money." Good luck with that. You 2 money-hungry people deserve each other. I do not want anything to do with you. The only person I feel sorry for is Sarah. She believed you 2 were her friends. Stay out of my life and stop calling." I could not afford to pay for college, so I took the opportunity for a scholarship. I wanted to become a mechanical engineer because I loved working with my hands. I used to be a bit reserved but had a soft spot for women. Growing up with sisters taught me to treat women with respect. My mom's advice was to treat girls how I would want my own sisters to be treated. I made friends with a guy named Mac. He seemed sociable, although not the athletic type. He had some intelligence and mentioned having some family money. He said he did not have much now, but there might be an inheritance in the future. He was studying for a bachelor's degree in business administration. When football did not occupy my time, we hung out together. Mac had a way with the ladies, and we attended numerous parties where women were not lacking. I was the reserved one, but quite a few girls showed interest in me. I have to credit Mac for that. My own shyness might have prevented me from starting conversations otherwise. After graduation, I stayed in Nogue and got a job as a mechanical engineer at Ford Motor Company. The salary was good, and I found a small apartment near the plant. I also managed to get a recent model truck. Every week I set aside some money and sent 600 pesos a month to my parents to help out. My dad worked as a coal miner, and our family bond was strong. Mike got a job in a warehouse in the same city as the Ford plant. It turned out to be one of our suppliers. He eventually moved up to warehouse manager. We went out on weekends, and he told me he had a girlfriend at his job. Her name was Sarah, and she was the inventory control manager. He introduced me to her, and I could have easily fallen in love with her at that moment. But Mac and I had a solid bro code: do not mess with each other's girls. It was a tough decision, but I decided to respect that code. I went out with a couple of girls from my own plant, but just as friends. I could not go on many double dates with Mac because, well, being around Sarah stirred up feelings in me. She was always charming with me. Mac invited me to his plant's Christmas party. Since they were one of our suppliers, I thought, why not, and agreed to go. At their party, I met a stunning girl named Jessica. She had curves and a really nice figure. Jessica dressed more provocatively than Sarah and was quite flirty. She told me she worked with Mac and Sarah as a secretary for one of the higher-ups. I told her about my job and we spent the whole night dancing. We decided to meet again and went out with Mac and Sarah for New Year's Eve. Sarah commented that she was happy for me finding someone, but the sincerity was not much. That night I took Jessica to my place. It was good, quite impressive if you know what I mean. The next morning, Jessica was surprised that I lived in a modest apartment. I explained that my job was relatively new, and I did not need much to live since I was also sending money to my family. I let her know that someday, of course, I would worry about all those material things, but not at that moment. She mentioned Mac's family's wealth and wondered if it was true. Considering he was my best friend, I confirmed it and mentioned they covered his educational expenses. Our dating saga continued, and we went out almost every weekend. My feelings were deepening and she reciprocated with hers. We did all kinds of things together, and yes, the bedroom action was a highlight. I admit, though, that her flirty behavior and constant talk about material things did not sit well with me. I reassured her, saying we could build a good life together. Still, when we went on double dates with Mac and Sarah, things felt off. There was a kind of tension between us that I could not quite identify. Update 1: Amoli and I had been together for about 6 months. We talked about our future, even possibly getting engaged later. Emily said we did not need to rush into decisions. We went to a county fair, and at one of those budget jewelry stalls, I bought Amoli a friendship ring. I told her it meant she was mine until she felt ready to take the step of engagement. She smiled as she put it on. I should mention that I went to the gym after work about 3 days a week and had managed to slim down to 230 pounds, feeling pretty good about my appearance. Then came that moment in the country bar and grill. I must admit, seeing my girl and my best friend kissing really hit me hard. After seeing them at the restaurant and talking on the phone, I cut all ties with both of them. Though I was very angry, I felt quite bad for Sarah. 2 weeks passed and my phone rang. Jack, I am so sorry about you and Amoli. I guess she might have made a mistake, but I never thought it would be with Mac. What is this about, Sarah? Are you saying there were others at work? I saw them having lunch with their boss, Brad. It seemed like a regular thing. I thought about telling you but did not want to hurt you in case I was wrong. Then I found out about Amoli and Mac. When I discovered it, I immediately cut all ties with both of them. It is a bit hard seeing them together at work, but I keep myself busy. Sarah, thanks for reaching out. I was worried about you. You are one of my closest friends. Maybe we can catch up sometime. I would love to, Jack. It was good talking to you. After our conversation, I was not sure if I felt better or worse. A couple of weeks passed, and one night while I was at the grocery store, I ran into Sarah. Hi, Jack, good to see you. How is everything going? Pretty well, and you? Back in the dating game. She smiled at me. I have turned down quite a few offers because I have my eyes set on someone special. I do not want to mess things up if he decides to call. Oh, I am sorry. I was actually going to ask if you would like to. Yes, I would love to go out with you. You are the one I have been hoping would ask. So, when and where do we meet? I need to know how to dress. I was thinking Saturday at my favorite country bar and grill. We exchanged goodbyes and I confirmed I would pick her up at 6. When I arrived at her place, she was sporting a cowboy look: jeans, vest, hat, and cowboy boots. She looked fantastic. I opened the truck door and she hopped in. Saturdays at the place featured a country band and singer. We found a booth and ordered a couple of beers. The band would not start for an hour, giving us time to chat. I was surprised to learn she was originally from Kentucky, just in the neighboring county to mine. She went to college there, applied for jobs, and eventually landed a job at the supply plant in Nogue. We placed our food orders. I got a double bacon burger and fries, while she opted for a Reuben sandwich, and we shared the fries. It was really nice reconnecting with her. She asked if this was the same bar where I caught Mac and Amoli, and I confirmed it was, but I would not let a couple of cheaters ruin my favorite place. She just smiled at me in response. Once the band started playing, we went out to dance. They began with two slow songs to encourage couples to hit the dance floor. Classic hits, that is what the crowd wanted. Then they switched to a faster tune and we both sat down. I mentioned to Sarah that I did not enjoy fast dances much but loved watching the ladies move. They played a couple of George Strait songs and I have always had a soft spot for his music. After that, they played some Garth Brooks songs and Sarah and I went back to the floor for the slow ones. The announcer called for the women to do a line dance and some men even joined in. Why do not you join the line dance? I asked Sarah playfully. You just want to see my big butt, she joked, smiling as she got up to join the other women. The line dance started and I could not help but keep my eyes on Sarah. She looked right at me and gave her but a little wiggle. I smiled and even clapped for her. After the song ended, she came back to me smiling and I leaned in to kiss her. Sorry about that, I apologized. Do not be, she responded, kissing me again. We had a lot of fun dancing and enjoying a few beers. The time flew by too quickly. They announced that the next song would be the last one. I held Sarah close as we swayed to the music. When the song ended, I leaned in and planted a kiss on her lips. I dropped her off at her place and asked if she would like to go out again next Saturday. I suggested we could visit Cedar Point, a large amusement park in Nogue. She happily agreed and we shared a goodnight kiss. I did not want to rush things on our first date. I felt fantastic at work all week. On Friday, I called Sarah to confirm our plans for Saturday. She mentioned she had heard of the park but had never been there. On Saturday morning, I picked her up and we headed to the park. During the drive, we chatted and I brought up whether she had mentioned to Mac or Amoli that we were dating. She told me she had not talked to either of them about it. We had an amazing time riding all the roller coasters and trying various other games. The park also had several shows that we watched. On the way back, we decided to have dinner at a Texas Roadhouse. When we got home, we were pretty exhausted. Sarah shared her house with a roommate named Joan, a friendly woman in her 50s who worked in a retail store. Sarah appreciated having a roommate as Joan treated her like family and they had a close bond. I informed Sarah that I would be out of town the next weekend but expressed my interest in seeing her the following week. She responded that I should call her when I returned. After sharing a kiss, I told her I really cared about her. She replied, saying she had always liked me too. When I got home, I wasted no time and called her to invite her to an important dinner event my boss was hosting. It was an anniversary celebration for him and his wife, to be held at the Hilton Hotel. I explained to Sarah that I had booked a hotel room for the night due to the expected amount of drinking. She understood if she was not interested in attending. Her response was positive. Jack, I would love to go with you. We will not need 2 beds, you know. I want you to know I am falling in love with you, just promise to be honest and not lead me astray. I would never hurt you, and I will make sure no one else does either, Sarah. Could we use your car? I would prefer not to show up at a fancy event in my truck. Sure, we can use my car, and I will let Joan know I will not be home that night. I parked my truck at her place, and we decided to use her car for the event. We arrived early, intending to get ready at the hotel. During the drive, Sarah mentioned she was considering looking for a new job due to her discomfort seeing Mac and Amoli regularly. She even shared a rumor that Amoli might be pregnant. For the party, I dressed in the bathroom with a tuxedo. When I came out, Sarah looked stunning. She wore a tight blue dress that highlighted her figure, and her hair fell to her shoulders. She had an elegant yet seductive presence. You look absolutely beautiful. I might not care about the party itself, I said. Her response was playful. Oh no, you do not. I did not go through all this effort just to change back again, she said with a smile, and we headed to the ballroom. Upon arrival, my boss and his wife greeted us. He introduced his wife and warmly welcomed us to the party. As they walked away, I noticed he was glancing at Sarah. Knowing many of the attendees, I introduced Sarah to the people I knew. She received numerous compliments. We grabbed some drinks and found a table. The event had a variety of appetizers, and they planned to serve dinner later. Sarah recognized a couple of women she was familiar with. Her role in inventory control put her in contact with these women regularly. I approached the human resources manager, Mary, and started a conversation. Mary, are there any openings in inventory control or supply chain? Actually, yes. Janice is retiring next month, and I have been tasked with finding her replacement. Do you have someone in mind? Yes, my companion tonight. You have met her. Sarah is looking for a new job opportunity. She currently handles inventory control. She enjoys her work but is ready for a change. I tell her to come see me on Monday and I will schedule an interview. She is quite a striking woman. Thanks, Mary. I really appreciate it. I am sure you do, Mary said with a laugh. The party turned out to be a success. I danced with the employees' wives and Sarah danced with their husbands. Most of the time, however, we were dancing together. The dinner was absolutely fantastic, offering options like roast beef, chicken, or shrimp along with all the sides. After a couple more drinks, we said our goodbyes to the host and went up to our hotel room. Sarah, are you absolutely sure about this? I do not want you to think I am trying to take advantage of you. Jack, stop overthinking and just be with me, she replied, helping her remove her dress. We hung it along with my tuxedo, pulled down the bed sheets, and well, you know. I turned off the lights and we cuddled up, falling asleep together. The last words I heard before drifting off were, "I love you, Jack." I woke up to the smell of freshly brewed coffee. Sarah had showered, dressed, and brought us each a cup of coffee. A good morning, Jack. Did you sleep well? I have not slept this well in a long time, I replied. After a quick shower and a cup of coffee, we both went down to the dining room for a nice breakfast. Among the employees, we saw many familiar faces all smiling. It looks like we have become a known couple, I mentioned to Sarah. Mary, the human resources person, walked by our table on her way out and told Sarah, "See you Monday," before leaving with a smile. What was that about? Sarah asked. I forgot to tell you that you have an interview with Mary on Monday at Ford, I said with a smile. Remember you mentioned considering a job change? Tears started welling up in her eyes as she whispered, "Jack, I hope this is not a dream. I love you so much." We chatted on the way home. As Sarah, I hope I am not rushing things, but in 3 weeks, I plan to visit my parents in Austin. I would love for you to come. I will leave Friday night and return Sunday. We can also make a stop to see your parents if you would like. I would love to go with you, but my parents are a bit traditional and we might not share a bed. I am sure everything will be fine, I replied. Update 2, we set off for Austin. Sarah mentioned the latest rumor about Mac and Amolie planning to get married next month due to Amolie's visible pregnancy. I think Amolie believes she is marrying into wealth, but she will soon realize that it is not Mac who has the money, but his parents. Mac may live extravagantly, but it is mostly on debt, I shared. Upon arriving at my parents' house, we were greeted by a spacious old farmhouse with numerous rooms and bathrooms. My siblings who still lived there came out to greet us, followed by Mom and Dad. I hugged everyone and introduced Sarah, who received warm hugs from all. We spent a couple of hours chatting. I knew my family would adore Sarah. She was looking at the pictures on the wall, particularly one of me in my football uniform from my younger years. I noticed tears in her eyes. Sarah, what is wrong? Are you okay? Remember that time when you were playing football at an away game? After the game, you walked through the tunnel and there were 2 guys trying to drag a girl in a yellow sweater into the tunnel. You confronted one of the guys, threw him to the ground, and then took down the other. You warned them that if they ever bothered the girl again, you would come back to finish what you started. Then you walked away to the locker room. Yes, I remember that incident, but I have never shared it with anyone. How did you find out? Jack, I was that girl. I never saw your face, just the number 52 on your jersey. I tried to find you afterward, but no one knew who you were. I managed to find out your name, Jack, but that was all I could discover. I was waiting by the tunnel for my friend when those 2 guys grabbed me and dragged me into the tunnel. They said they wanted to have some fun. I screamed for them to let me go. That is when you showed up. They never bothered me again. She leaned in and kissed me. There was something familiar about you the first time we met when Mac introduced us. That is the only positive thing I can say about Mac, he introduced us. My mom had prepared a bed for Sarah and informed me that I could sleep in the basement where there was an extra bed. Around 1 in the morning, Sarah joined me. We shared a quiet, intimate moment, though it was a bit tricky given the circumstances. She returned to her bed an hour later. On Saturday, we visited Sarah's family. She had not mentioned that her parents had money. They had a lovely home and Sarah had 2 attractive younger sisters who were a few years younger than her. She introduced me as her boyfriend. I overheard Sandy, one of her sisters, saying to Sarah that I was quite handsome. We went in and chatted for a while. Hank, her father, asked me about my job and background. He had his concerns about his little girl, as he affectionately called her. Mr. Cotter, I would like to talk to you about marrying your daughter. I am here to ask for your blessing. Sarah and I had not discussed this beforehand, so she looked surprised, with tears in her eyes as she watched. Although we have not been together long, our love is strong, and we believe we can build a great life together in marriage. Jack, I appreciate you coming to talk to me, although it was not necessary. You should know that Sarah follows her heart. Sarah, do you love Jack? Yes, Dad, I do with all my heart. Then you have my blessing on one condition. You two must get married here in Austin so your mother and I can give you a proper wedding and we will cover the costs. I surprised everyone when I pulled a ring from my pocket. I got down on one knee and proposed to Sarah. She said yes, kissed me, then ran to kiss her dad and hug her mom, who was crying tears of joy. We all stood up and enjoyed a fantastic chicken dinner together. We returned to my parents' house and mentioned to the Cotters that we would keep them informed about our future plans. When we shared the news of our engagement with Mom and Dad, they were absolutely delighted. Many of my relatives who still lived nearby came over for a barbecue. Dad proclaimed himself the grill master while Mom prepared the meat and other dishes inside. Sarah offered to help in the kitchen, mentioning that she enjoyed cooking too. All my relatives came to greet me and meet Sarah. She was the first woman I had brought home to meet the family, and everyone assured me she was a gem and encouraged me to make her happy. After a day of celebration, we bid farewell to our relatives and promised to keep them informed about our wedding date. Just before we went to bed, Sarah whispered to me that my mom had warned her about a step on the stairs. It turned out she had accidentally kicked a pair of shoes, and they rolled down the stairs. Sarah tried to apologize, but Mom reassured her, saying she too had been young once and that Sarah's lively spirit was probably why she ended up with so many kids. Sarah came back downstairs, and we shared a quiet, intimate moment. We tried to keep things quiet, but you know how that goes. She did not return upstairs until almost 5 in the morning. After a night of intimacy, we fell asleep. In the morning, Mom and Sarah exchanged knowing smiles. We all enjoyed a hearty country breakfast, then hugged and kissed everyone goodbye before heading back home. On Monday, Sarah had her interview with the Human Resources Department. On Tuesday, she received a call from Mary, informing her that she got the job and could give her 2 weeks' notice. She called me to share the news, but I already knew. We decided to celebrate by going out to dinner that night at my favorite country bar. At the restaurant, we both ordered steak dinners. Sarah mentioned that Mac and Emily were on vacation that week and the next. They had gone to Las Vegas to get married. She commented that these were the nicest 2 weeks she had ever had at the plant since she did not have to deal with Mac and Emily. She added that everyone was sad to see her go but understood she was moving on to a better opportunity. Working at Ford meant having some of the best-paying jobs in the region. Sarah felt lucky to have gotten the interview and job offer. She kept our relationship and engagement secret from everyone else. She revealed that she left an anonymous note on Mac's desk before leaving. The note advised him to consider a DNA test once the baby was born, given his wife's frequent lunches with her boss. The note ended with congratulations, but she always wore a radiant smile. When the guys approached her for dates, she proudly displayed her engagement ring and made it clear she was engaged to me. They knew well not to cross any lines. Sarah shared that Joan was helping her plan the wedding. Joan played the role of a caring guardian. Joan had a married daughter, and she and Sarah had become close friends, sharing expenses as roommates. I made sure to stop by a couple of times a week to help with anything needed. I contacted my mom and asked if she could provide a list of relatives and friends to invite from our part of the world. My mom went a step further and found the invitations, taking care of sending them out for us. I gave her the wedding date, set for 5 months from then. Sarah talked to her mom and shared the wedding date with her too. Due to her father's connections, he had numerous contacts and clients. Although I was quite anxious about it all, I was actually contributing the least possible. I reached out to several co-workers to see if they would be interested in attending the wedding. I informed them that we planned to get married in Austin. Surprisingly, many expressed their intention to attend. Thanks to Joan's connections at the retail store, she secured a seamstress for Sarah's wedding dress. Joan also confirmed that she and her daughter would be present at the event. Sophie, Sarah's mother, called us and informed us that she had hired a caterer but mentioned needing a headcount of attendees closer to the wedding date. Sophie also mentioned that her husband, Hank, had secured a talented band. Everything seemed to be falling into place perfectly. I asked Sarah if she thought we were going overboard with the preparations. It was clear this wedding would come with a considerable price tag. Charlie, this idea of a grand wedding is entirely my parents' vision. They have dreamed of this type of wedding since we were little. Trust me, my sisters will have equally lavish weddings. Why did you not ever tell me you came from a wealthy family? I kept my family's financial background hidden because I wanted you to be interested in me for who I am. For the record, I have only shared this with Joan, and even Mac does not know. Does this revelation change anything for you? I am interested in you as a person, not in anything else. If you want, I am willing to sign a prenuptial agreement. There will not be a need for a prenuptial agreement. I believe we will be together forever. Besides, I do not have much wealth right now. Maybe in the future through an inheritance, but not much now. I will have a loving husband who supports me. Sarah sorted out her lineup for the wedding party. Her father would walk her down the aisle, her older sister would be the maid of honor, and her younger sister would be one of the bridesmaids. She invited my 2 married sisters to be bridesmaids too. My brothers-in-law would be my groomsmen, and my single brothers would be paired with her sisters. It turned out that my youngest brother would be my best man. My niece and nephew were chosen as the flower girl and ring bearer, respectively. We contacted all of them and they happily agreed. Fortunately, it truly became a family affair. Sarah was thriving in her new job and everyone admired her. She was well liked by her colleagues, which was not surprising. A dilemma arose since she had only worked there for 5 months and had not accrued vacation days. We thought about and considered the option of leaving on Friday night, getting married on Saturday, and returning on Sunday. It would be crazy, but with limited options, it seemed feasible. Only 3 weeks away from the wedding, the plant manager called me to his office. We had a good relationship and he mentioned he planned to attend the wedding. Charlie, I heard you have an issue around your wedding date. Mary mentioned you are leaving Friday, getting married Saturday, and coming back Sunday. Is that right? Yes, Mark, that is the plan. Sarah does not have vacation days. Well, Charlie, make sure your lovely wife knows we are granting her personal time off from Thursday through the entire following week. Also, I have 2 tickets for a 4-day cruise as a honeymoon gift. Thanks, Mark. I am sure she will be thrilled. I shook his hand and contacted Sarah at her office to tell her we were going out to lunch. I told her I had something important to discuss. At the restaurant, Sarah asked, "What is up, Charlie? What do you want to talk about?" Mark called me to his office and told me you are getting time off from Thursday through the entire following week. We do not have to rush to get there or hurry back. And wait, there is more. I put the tickets on the table. Naturally, Sarah started crying. We had everything set for the wedding and could leave on Thursday, making things easier for us. The rehearsal and rehearsal dinner took place on Friday. I asked my dad if he needed any money, and he told me he had set aside the money I sent him since we announced the wedding. I really admired and respected that man. After dinner, I kissed Sarah and told her I would see her the next day. Sarah had informed her mom about the number of people attending both the wedding and the reception. She did not tell me the count, mentioning that I was already quite nervous. I knew all my siblings, aunts, uncles, and their families would be present. I heard that the motels in both counties had been fully booked for months. I hoped our guests could find accommodation. On Saturday morning, I woke up and my mom insisted I have breakfast. I could not go all day with an empty stomach and nerves. During our conversation at breakfast, Mom mentioned they had met the Cotters. They found them very friendly people who thought highly of me. After breakfast, I took a long shower and shaved. I dressed in my tuxedo, a white one to match Sarah's dress. My brothers were also there in black tuxedos, all for part of the wedding party. It was time to head to the church. The church was located in the neighboring county but was only 30 miles away. The church was quite large and my brother mentioned it could accommodate over 700 people. As guests started arriving, my brothers and I helped them find their seats. As they walked in, they said I did not have to help, but I insisted on doing something. Joan and her daughter arrived and I directed them to sit with the families on Sarah's side. I was seating relatives I had not seen in years. I was glad to see some of my co-workers at the event. My boss, Mark, and his wife had flown in for the occasion. Then I was directed to go to the front of the church because Sarah's limousine had arrived, and I was not supposed to see her before the ceremony. I went to chat with my parents briefly. A woman started playing music on the organ. After a couple of songs, an announcement was made for guests to take their seats as the wedding was about to begin. Every wedding has its unique touches. I walked to the front and stood next to the minister. The first to walk down the aisle was Sandy, accompanied by my brother. They made a great couple. Both walked to the front and took their positions. After them came Mary, who walked with my other single brother. After that, my married brothers walked with their wives. One of my nephews walked down as the ring bearer, while I had the actual ring in my pocket. Two men rolled out a white cloth, and my niece walked down the aisle, scattering rose petals. The music changed, and everyone stood up. The bridal march started, and Sarah was walking down the aisle, escorted by her proud father. She looked incredibly beautiful, like an angel. I could feel tears rolling down my face. "Who gives this woman to this man?" the minister asked. Her mother and I," her father replied. We exchanged our vows. I placed the ring on her finger, and then I was given the go-ahead to kiss the bride, which I did. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Jack Thompson." Everyone stood up and applauded. We stood at the door of the church along with the other members of the wedding party, expressing our gratitude to everyone who attended. It took over 30 minutes to empty the church as people headed to the rented hall. Upon arriving at the hall, there were drinks and appetizers available for everyone. A band was playing, although not many were dancing at that moment. The tables were arranged all around. As we walked in, the whole crowd stood up and applauded us. We took our seats. Mr. Cotter said a few words and then announced that the food was ready. Serving tables were set up on both sides, ensuring everyone got their food fairly quickly. Hank, Sarah, and I were served first. We probably finished eating last as we kept pausing to kiss every 10 seconds in response to the clinking glasses. Some tables were moved from the dance floor to make more room for dancing. Sarah and I were the first couple to hit the dance floor, followed by the rest of the wedding party, and then everyone joined in. The reception continued for a solid 4 hours. Some guests even helped themselves to another round of food. It truly was a fantastic evening. Epilogue: we had an amazing time on our cruise. It was a good decision to bring my truck to the wedding. I rented a small U-Haul and loaded all the gifts we received. When we returned home, we started looking for a new house. Eventually, we found a nice 3-bedroom house with a jacuzzi. We spent a couple of weeks in my small apartment initially, but Sarah felt we needed something more spacious. We decided to leave the gifts we brought back at Joan's house since we would not be living there. We checked if she could manage on her own, and she assured us she had no financial issues. She simply enjoyed taking care of Sarah, but now that responsibility was shared with me. Every night, we worked on writing thank you cards. I think we are almost done with that. We also had lunch together at work about 3 times a week. It has been 4 months since the wedding and things are going very well. We have not had any arguments and always discuss and resolve any differences we have. We have always been told that communication is key, something we actively practice. Sarah mentioned that one of her friends from a previous workplace called and found out that Amoli was in financial trouble with a lot of debt. There was also a rumor that someone advised Mac to consider a DNA test when the baby was born. However, they were not sure about the source of that information. A few weeks passed, and then Sarah received another call informing her about some issues with Mac and Amoli. It turned out that Mac did a DNA test and confirmed he was not the father. Is not that crazy? Thanks for reading my story.